Alright. Latency. Cool. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time tuning in, we're usually here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. PST. Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. Today we're doing an unscheduled stream today because it's Chinese New Year and I thought that I'd cook some stuff for Chinese New Year. If you are not familiar with a number of the things that we're cooking, feel free to ask me about it. I don't know everything about all of the things that I'm going to be cooking today, but I know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful or informative, or at the very least entertaining to watch. Today we're going to be cooking a handful of things, a couple of which are going to be done with some shortcuts that are basically just store-bought stuff, but all of which have recipe videos for things that I have actually made from scratch before. So, but if you're feeling lazy, I can highly recommend using some of the store-bought stuff for sure. Starting off, I should say, if you have not yet, feel free to hop over to the YouTube channel where we are always concurrently live streaming. That would always be the laptop behind me. That laptop, it has, or that stream, it has a whole schedule of everything that I'm going to be cooking. That's where the full schedule of everything that comes up on live streams live. That schedule, I think it goes out by almost 3 weeks now. So you can find out what I'm going to be cooking within the next couple of weeks, and that's over on YouTube. If you're watching on Reddit, that would be youtube.com/woocancook. That's the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, you're already there. You made it. Good job. Today we're going to be cooking a handful of things. The first thing that I'm going to be making is actually the only thing that I'm going to make from scratch today, which is a green onion pancake. If you've never heard of a green onion pancake, you might also see it referred to as a scallion pancake, or in Chinese a cong. It's one of my favorite, like, very, very simple, probably the most pantry thing that you can make, at least in, like, as far as I can think of in Taiwanese cuisine. And that's because it's made basically just flour, water, and then a couple of green onions. So it's one of those things that I love throwing together when I don't know what else to cook. It's also really great for breakfast if you have, like, no idea what else to add to your breakfast in addition to, like, a fried egg. Is a green onion pancake because it's very, very simple. It's basically just flour, water, a couple of green onions, and then that's really it. There's no dough rising. There's not a lot else going on in it. So, very, very simple pantry ingredient. I'm starting off, happy Chinese New Year. Hello, everyone. I'm starting off by slicing up my green onions here. So these are green onions, not scallions. Green onions and scallions, by the way, lots of people ask me about the difference. They're very similar. I think the biggest difference, as far as I can tell, is the size. So a green onion, it has more of a white portion at the bottom, whereas a scallion is a much thinner and is more has more green than white portion. So I like using green onions rather than scallions because you get more of the white portion. And that white portion, it's where all of the flavor lives. In my opinion, the greens don't taste have nearly as much flavor as the whites. But that's just me. Okay. All right. So next up, what we're going to do is probably the simplest bread dough that you have ever seen, or not bread dough, but like pancake dough that you've ever seen, and it's just literally a 2-to-1 batter with flour and water. So this is just plain old AP flour that we're using today. I'm going to start with, this is a 1/3 cup of AP flour. 1/3 cup? Sorry, 2/3 cup of AP flour. Followed by 1/3 cup of cold water. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to add is a pinch of salt. And that's going to just add a little bit of flavor. And that is it. That is the whole batter, which is my favorite part about a green onion pancake, is that it is literally just flour and water plus a little bit of salt. And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine this, and then we're going to roll it in a couple of different directions until a smooth batter forms, and then we're going to add our scallions. The way that I like to describe a green onion pancake is that it's one of those dishes that's very, very easy to make, but very, very difficult to master because it has a number of things that are going on that create the qualities about it that lots of people associate with. You're eating some right now, yeah, totally. So Yeah, I guess that I should also mention the reason that I wanted to make it today is because it's one of the things that I always grew up eating on Chinese New Year. So it's a dish that I frequently associate with Chinese New Year. So I'm sure that there are lots of folks on Reddit right now who associate green onion pancakes with Chinese New Year, and I'm guessing maybe that's why you're eating it right now. It's also one of those dishes that are very frequent. So I used to make this in college a lot because it's like a super easy dish that you can throw together. Like you can pretty much do it in your dorm room on a hot plate, basically. I'm combining my dough here, and just until we get a smooth batter formed. And that ought to do it. And that is literally just the dough. It's just flour and water. Very, very simple dough. This is your dad's favorite dish. Yeah, totally. I learned this, so this is a fun, interesting, random tidbit that I actually learned how to do this. It wasn't actually from my parents. I learned how to do it from my Chinese teacher, my Mandarin teacher, when I was in, I think that was in the 6th or 7th grade. And she taught my brother and I how to do it. I think it was after a lesson one day because like we did our homework. And it ended up being that was literally the only thing that I remembered from those Chinese lessons was how to make these green onion pancakes. All right, so I think this will yield 3. So I'm going to separate these into 3 separate balls. And this is, by the way, where the green onion pancakes start getting kind of complicated. So not complicated in the sense where it's like difficult to remember or like hard to follow, but difficult because it has a number of steps that we have to make sure that we get exactly right. Otherwise, you're not going to get super, super flaky pancakes. You're just going to end up with like a brick of flour. Yeah, totally. Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by rolling these out as thin as we can get it. It doesn't have to be super thin, but we want it to be as thin as possible. The thinner that you can get it, the more flaky layers you will end up with. So the less work that you put in, the less flaky it will be. So I have definitely on some mornings just kind of gotten lazy and then just tapped out super early. And then what happens is this, you'll still end up with a very tasty pancake. It's still fried dough, so you could still eat it, but it won't be as flaky. So it kind of depends on like how much time do you want to invest in this. So what I like to do is give it a roll and then give it a quarter turn after each roll. So this comes from, actually this was a technique that I picked up from pie making. So, essentially what we're doing is making sure that we get as close to an even circle with our dough as possible by rotating a quarter turn after each roll. And what you'll find is you don't need to use a lot of pressure, but what you'll find is that eventually, very gradually, your dough will start rolling out into a thin piece of dough. I also like to flip it every once in a while because there's flour on the opposite side, and that is going to help keep the dough from sticking to the rolling pin. Yeah, buttery, flaky crust. Yeah, so that's like a quality that we associate. It has, so that's what's so interesting about a green onion pancake is that it has a lot of qualities that we associate with pie, which is like a very, very flaky crust, but it actually has no butter in it, which is what makes it so interesting, is that it has no butter in it, but it's actually still extremely flaky, which is why I say there are a number of things that you have to do in a green onion pancake to make sure that it is flaky. With a pie crust, it's very simple. It's basically just if you add butter, it creates flake. That's what the butter is doing. But with a green onion pancake, because there's no butter in it, we have to do a handful of things. And the main thing that we're going to start by doing is making sure that it is rolled very, very thin. So what they say is that it should be thin enough to read the New York Times through. So hypothetically, if you put it on top of a newspaper, you should be able to see through it. I usually tap out before that happens, but it really depends. How much time are you ready to commit to this? Yeah, how do I keep my dough from being too thin or breaking? I don't. It breaks all the time. And don't be discouraged if that happens. It's not the end of the world. Just put it back together and then keep rolling. It's not the end of the world. Don't panic if it does break. It literally happens to me all the time. And I think that the only reason that it hasn't happened super often anymore is just because I make these pancakes so often. I probably make these once or twice a month, every month since I was like in the 7th grade. So I make them a lot. All right, so I'm adding my scallions, followed by just a little bit of sesame oil and a pinch of salt. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll it up, so kind of like a rolling, like a cigar, I guess you could think of, or a hot dog direction. So we're rolling it this first direction, so we have this long piece of dough, and then we're going to roll it in the second direction, lengthwise. So we're going to roll this direction next, and we're trying to roll this. I'm trying to roll this as tight as possible, and then I'm going to add a little bit of water at the very end to make sure that this sticks and stays shut. And now we have this nice coiled piece of dough. So what's happened here is that with each different direction that we rolled it, there's going to be a flake, and that very multiple layers of flakiness is going to come very, very important. That's going to be the thing that creates flakiness in your pancake. Right, so what I like to do is I like to set these, so we're going to do all 3 of these, so I'm going to set these. What I like to do is set them on the side that it's sealed on, and that helps it keep it from popping open. So also super important, we want to make sure that this doesn't pop open. Otherwise your pancake is going to fall apart in the fry. Oh, you wish I would do one on stream? Yeah, I'll do another one. We're going to do 3, so don't worry. There's plenty more coming. Cool. Hello to everyone just tuning in. I'd be better about introducing myself more. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time tuning in, we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. PST and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. I realize that today is not a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Today is a randomly scheduled day that I added to the calendar because it's Chinese New Year and I wanted to cook some stuff on Chinese New Year. Because usually on Chinese New Year I'm home with my family and cooking stuff with my family. But today during COVID, we're all not really doing stuff together in person, so I thought I'd cook for strangers on the internet, so here we are. We're going to do a handful of things today, all of which are pretty quick and easy to make. The first thing that we're doing today is actually a green onion pancake, or you might see it often called a scallion pancake. In Mandarin it's called a cong, which I think literally translates to onion water pancake, something like that. Something like that. But it is one of the simplest and easiest things that I know how to make from Chinese or Taiwanese cuisine, which is why I love doing it on random nights where I don't know what else to make, is just make some green onion pancakes. I also love doing them for breakfast because they're really easy things to add to a breakfast if you have like some fried eggs and hash browns, and then throw on some green onion pancakes. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I don't know everything about green onion pancakes or Chinese New Year, but I know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful or informative or entertaining to watch. Lots of folks have started tuning in over on the YouTube channel, so I know lots of folks are already watching over on YouTube. If you're watching on Reddit, the YouTube channel, that's the laptop that's living behind me. On that channel, that's where the whole schedule of everything that I cook lives. So if you were following over on YouTube, you would have known a couple of weeks ago that I would be doing this stream. We also did a poll over on the YouTube channel, and I asked some folks what they wanted me to cook, and this is what people requested. So we're doing all 3. If you haven't hopped over to the YouTube channel yet, I definitely recommend hopping over and checking out what's going on over there. That's where all of the live stream schedule lives, and a couple of other things. In addition to the schedule, that's also where all of the recipes for everything that I cook lives. So almost everything except for the Nian Gao is in a recipe form over on the YouTube channel. So if you're interested in reproducing what I'm cooking today yourself, I definitely recommend hopping over because there's lots of fun food and recipes that live over on that channel. We have a couple of series going on over there. There's a whole series that's dedicated to just Chinese American foods. So we've been doing a lot of Panda Express dishes and kind of deconstructing some things from Chinese American cuisine and then kind of reconstructing it and taking a look at what Chinese American cuisine would look like if it wasn't so American. And and sort of like removing some of the American qualities that often involves removing things like sugar and sauce, and then reconstructing it with a lens that's more like traditionally Chinese. That's always super interesting. So we actually did one of the dishes from that series yesterday with a General Tso's chicken. That's always super interesting because what essentially Chinese American food is basically just American food. So if you take out the American qualities of Chinese American food, what you're left with is not much. So it's always super interesting because usually in that series I'll reassemble it with some things that come from traditional Chinese cuisine, and it ends up being very, very interesting because it's like fried chicken, but it's more traditionally Chinese. So I love that series. So if you're interested in stuff like that, I definitely recommend hopping over to YouTube, checking out what's going on over there. We're working our way to 2,300 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you want to help us hit that goal, hop over to YouTube and check out what's going on over there. Don't subscribe if you're not interested, but subscribe if you are interested. I don't like spamming people. So. If you don't have sesame oil, what would you use? I would say is if you don't have sesame oil, I would leave it out. Just don't add oil. It's really just for flavor. Maybe the one thing that you might consider adding is a little bit of sesame seed if you have sesame seed. But if you don't have either of those, then you can totally leave it out. And I have left it out all the time, and it will taste just fine. Because sesame oil is very it's very subtle, so you won't. I mean, you will notice if it's not there, but it's also very subtle, so it's not gonna like fall apart or anything. All right, so we're on our third pancake here already. We're almost done. You'll notice that after every time that I roll, I'm rotating the dough a quarter turn, and that's resulting in as close to a perfectly circle as possible. This comes from pie making, and it gives us as close to a perfectly circled dough as possible, and that helps us keep the dough very, very even, or as even as we possibly can get it. Yeah. So someone asked earlier, what do I do if the dough rips, or how do I keep the dough from ripping? That absolutely happens all the time, and it just did. So don't panic if that happens. Essentially, what's happening when the dough rips is your cutting board is not floured enough, and I thought we would get away with it because we're almost done, but no dice. So it's not the end of the world. Just add a little bit more flour, and make sure that your rolling pin is floured a little bit too. So I like to add a little bit of flour to the rolling pin, and that will keep it from sticking. And then just press it back together and keep going. Don't panic. Alright, that ought to do it. Okay, so I'm adding, this is a tiny little bit of sesame oil, maybe a quarter teaspoon of sesame oil, plus a good pinch of green onions. Actually, I'm going to use the rest of these up. If you're making this for breakfast, what I like to do is hang on to the remaining or leftover green onions, and then add them to some scrambled eggs, and it's a really good way to use up your green onions. Right, so we have this nice, I'm rolling this lengthwise first into a nice log, and then I'm turning it on its side and then rolling it the opposite direction until we have this nice coil, and then adding a little bit of water at the very, very end, and that's to make sure that this thing stays shut. If you don't pay attention and make sure it stays shut, it will absolutely come apart in the fry, and that's never a good thing. Okay, we want to do this. Yeah, let's do them all in order. Let's hop over to the stove. Right, so over on the stove, I have my cast iron pan that has been preheating on medium heat. We don't need ripping hot heat today. We don't need to sear anything. But we do want it to be pretty hot. We need a decent amount of heat here to make sure that we can get a pretty well crisped green onion pancake. Excuse me while I flip a camera over. This is actually probably the first time in a while that I have not used my wok on a stream. All right, so the next part, this is one of the tricks that I picked up, and this actually comes from, I think I picked this up from making smash burgers. This is actually where I learned this technique. And what we're going to do, you'll notice, so back over on the cutting board, we'll pay attention one more time, that I have not actually flattened out my pancakes yet, so they're still in round coils. And that's very, very important. What we're going to do is we're going to flatten them in the frying pan. And that's going to help us keep their shape. If we flatten them off heat, it becomes very, very difficult because they're really, really sticky. Green onion pancake, it is a high hydration dough, or not a super high hydration dough, but it's high enough where if you try and flatten it out on a cutting board, it will stick to whatever you're flattening it out with. So what I like to do is add a little bit of oil, actually a lot of oil. We need quite a bit of oil for a green onion pancake. This is maybe 6 tablespoons, or about a quarter cup, excuse me. And then I'm adding my first green onion pancake. We can probably do 2 at a time. And then what we're going to do, here we are. Okay. So what I like to do is give it maybe 30 seconds, and that's going to let it sear on one side. Once you start hearing a little bit of sizzling, that you can flip over. And then what we're going to do is, now that it is seared on one side, we can give it a smash and it won't stick to our spatula. So I'm smashing and then turning slightly. So if you've ever made a smash burger, this is essentially how smash burgers are made. They're round balls of meat that are smashed on the skillet. Just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. You will most likely lose some green onions in the process. That's okay if you see some falling out. Not the end of the world, don't panic. And we're going to give that about 2 minutes per side. Yeah, not 2 minutes, maybe a minute. As always, remember to flip away from you, because if you flip towards you, you will definitely splash yourself with oil. And that is a mistake that I have absolutely made more times than I can count. Very relaxing video. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Taco dude. One more time, flip away from you. That could use a little bit more time. Yeah, it's better. All right, so back off heat over on our cutting board. I'm removing my pancakes and I'm setting them, very important, set them on a side on a dry paper towel. Super, super important. Don't just put it on the plate, because if you put it on the plate, it will sit on the plate in the oil. And then what will happen is that oil, it will eventually become cold oil. And then it will turn into soggy oil. So it will start becoming a soggy mess in that oil. So always make sure that you rest this stuff on a little bit of a dry paper towel, and that will help catch some of the excess oil that's seeping off. One more. That's our green onion pancakes. So I wasn't timing it, but I think that happened in like maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. You don't count all of the talking. So that's our green onion pancakes. I like to serve these just with a little bit of soy sauce, nothing super complicated. You can also serve it with a little bit of scallion or a little bit of sesame oil, maybe a little bit of samba olek. That's also really, really great. We can take a look. But you will notice is that they are super, super flaky, so we can take a look here. All of that flake comes from all of the different layers that we've rolled into our green onion pancakes. So that's where all of that comes from. So if you've ever made these, or like had some in the restaurants, that's how they make them. Okay. The paper towel tip, yeah, very, very important, as I've learned, is that it will absolutely turn into a soggy, hot 5 minutes if you don't add that paper towel down. We do the same thing with anything that happens in the fryer. So fried chicken, I also do, you should do the same thing with French fries. I don't always remember to do that. Really anything that's fried, because anytime that you fry something, it will continue to leach off that fryer oil. Yeah, I love you both. I love you too. All right, so next up, this is probably something that a lot of folks, if you haven't had a lot of dim sum in your life, have probably never seen. This is a taro pancake. This is a store-bought taro pancake, which is why it looks like a weird, kind of looks like a tofu block. It is very, very solid, so it's kind of just like a gray solid mess. But I guarantee you that it will cook into one of the most delicious things that I have ever had. This is a store-bought taro pancake. I believe Wu Tao Go, something like that. Don't quote me, my Chinese is very bad. I also did a version of this from scratch, which is easily miles and miles ahead of any store-bought taro pancake that I have ever had. Essentially what it is it's a pancake that is made from taro, shredded taro. But it's also really, really difficult. And I love buying this stuff, packaged stuff, and then having it in the refrigerator for like a really, really quick snack. So this is another really great quick snack to throw together if you are short on time. I frequently eat this stuff before live streams because sometimes the live streams take really, really long, and I'll eat this stuff as a snack. So if you're looking for that recipe from scratch, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel. That recipe lives over there. It is a lot more labor intensive. It's not a quick snack. I think the recipe from scratch, it took at least a full 24 hours because you have to rest for a full 12 hours. So what am I drinking? I'm drinking a mango cart. It's a, I think it's pretty much just the beer, but it's essentially, to me, it's essentially a shandy. I'm not drinking whiskey. This is the first time in a while that I'm not drinking whiskey on stream. Yeah, okay. Scallions are the same as green onions. Almost. In my mind, they're very, very similar. I have discovered recently, after doing a bit more research about this, is that they're very, very slightly different. They are definitely different plants. And what the main difference, so they look super similar. For all intents and purposes, you can use them interchangeably in most cooking. In my opinion, a green onion has more flavor to it because it has more white. So a green onion, it's usually a little bit thicker at the bottom, so you'll have that nice thick bottom white end. Whereas a scallion, I believe, is much thinner. So it's more similar in my mind to a chive. But as far as I know, you can use them interchangeably. All right, so for our taro pancake, since we're using store-bought stuff, really just dropping it into a frying pan. I should probably use tongs, but I'm not gonna. They're the same thing. Okay, so I'm adding these to some very hot oil, and we're going to sear them on two sides, and that is pretty much it. Cool, while that's going, hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Wu Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're here streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. PST and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. Obviously today is not a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. That's because I put in a randomly scheduled stream today, doing some stuff for Chinese New Year. So yeah, what's in the pan today? So we're doing a number of different things. So what I just finished doing were our green onion pancakes. They look like this. These are green onion pancakes, or frequently scallion pancakes. So these we just finished cooking up. This is also the only thing that we cooked from scratch. So everything else we're going to be using store-bought stuff for. Right now we're doing some taro pancakes. That's in the pan right now. And the very last thing that we're going to be doing are some Nian Gao, or I think literally translates to Chinese year cake. So Nian, year, Gao, cake. And I actually managed to get my hands on some fresh Nian Gao, which I did not know was actually even made. I do know that this stuff has an extremely short shelf life. So probably the only time that you will ever see this stuff made fresh is on Chinese New Year in Chinatown. After that, I think it only has a shelf life of maybe like 2 or 3 days. Otherwise, it turns into hardened mess. And that is why most of the time when you find Nian Gao, it looks like this. It's freeze-dried into a vacuum-sealed bag. Right, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So if this is your first time tuning in, we're here streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 PST, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. Today we're doing some fun stuff for Chinese New Year, which are a couple of my favorite things that I like cooking on Chinese New Year. Usually I do these things with my family. This year we're not meeting up as a family because of COVID, so I thought I'd cook some stuff on Chinese New Year for you guys. Put these. Cool. Yeah, what exactly is it? That's a great question. So what it essentially is, it's taro. So taro is a root veggie. I think of it most similar to a turnip. So it really doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's basically just starch. And then it's added or steamed with a whole bunch of stuff. So I think it's got some dried shrimp in it. There's definitely Chinese sausage involved. I think it has some green onions in it. I forget what else goes into a taro pancake, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that's involved that goes into it. If you're looking for exactly what it is, I actually did a recipe from scratch for exactly this taro pancake. What we're using today is store-bought taro pancake. So it basically just comes in a giant block, and then you cut it up and then throw it in the frying pan. It's much easier to make from store-bought because all you have to do is chop it up. The original from scratch taro pancake that I made, I think it took me a whole day to make because you have to steam it first. And you also have to par cook the veggies. Yeah, so what flavor do taro pancakes have? Yeah, they don't have a lot of flavor. The taro itself doesn't have a lot of flavor. All of the flavor of the taro pancake, it comes from everything that's in it. So it's a little bit fishy from that shrimp. It's very umami forward because of the Chinese sausage that's in it. Chinese sausage, if you've never had it, probably the most predominant flavor that comes out of it is Chinese 5-spice. So it has a lot of star anise and cinnamon going on. So very, very savory. Yeah, can taro pancake have a vegan version? Totally. So I forget exactly what goes in, but if you just leave out that sausage, it's vegetarian. Oh, vegan though. I'm pretty sure it's vegan. As long as you leave out that sausage, I'm pretty sure it's vegan. Oh yeah, the fish and the shrimp. As long as you leave those two things out, I'm pretty sure it's vegan. But essentially, so you could think of it it's most similar to a hash brown. And then we're going to serve it with a little bit of soy sauce. Cool. Yeah, so definitely, yeah, I imagine if you don't eat a lot of dim sum every day, this is probably one of the things that you don't eat a lot of. Yeah, I imagine this is one of the things that you don't eat a lot of because I've only ever seen it either in dim sum or at my parents' house or making it myself. Alright, so just like with our green onion pancakes, I'm going to remove these and I'm setting them down on some paper towels. And that, again, for the same reason, it's going to catch all of that excess oil and keep these from getting soggy. But yeah, also, so if you can't find taro, taro was definitely tricky for me to find. I have only ever seen it in Chinatown. But if you can't find taro, that there is definitely a very, very similar version that you will find almost as much as you find taro pancakes done with turnip. And it's essentially the exact same thing, but instead of using taro, you use turnip. But yeah, if you are interested, here is the recipe for the original version that I made from scratch. And I forget exactly what goes in it, but it's mainly taro and a couple of sausage ingredients. Alright, so I'm pulling this off heat, and let's take a look. So again, super easy dish to throw together. You'll notice that as long as you're using the store-bought stuff, we skipped the whole part where we had to make the taro pancake. All we really had to do was fry it. And what you'll find is that when it starts out, when you first have the raw block of taro pancake, it looks like taro, which is gray and pretty unappealing. It kind of reminds me a lot of like what a potato looks like if you were to steam a potato and then let it oxidize, so it potentially turns gray. But once you start searing it, it develops this really nice mired reaction. So we could look a little bit closer. There we go. And it crisps up very nicely. So we have this very nice burn or crisp edges going on, and it's probably one of the more tasty things that I have done, at least from scratch. Yeah, totally. Thanks for tuning in. And then the very last thing, I'm super stoked for this because I have actually never come across Nian Gao fresh. So usually when you find Nian Gao, it looks like this. So most often when you find Nian Gao, it comes in a vacuum sealed pack, and it looks like this. And that's because Nian Gao has an extremely short shelf life. I think when it's fresh like this, it probably only has a shelf life of maybe 3 days, 4 days at its max, and then after that it starts turning stale, and then you have a very stale piece of cake, and it's not going to work out really well. It also will mold very quickly, even in the refrigerator. It does not have a long shelf life, which is why it is always vacuum sealed like this. So the difference is night and day. You can hear it. This is solid. This is dehydrated and turned solid in this vacuum pack, whereas this is very squishy. It is literally fresh. I would guess it was made either yesterday or maybe the day before. But most often you will find it looks like this in a vacuum sealed pack. I bought this before I found this, assuming that I would not be able to find fresh Nian Gao. But it is also the thing that you most frequently will eat on Chinese New Year, because it is literally translates to year cake, so Nian, year, cake, Gao. And it has this symbol on it. I forget what this character translates to, but this is the character that you see in a lot of Chinese restaurants. Will look very much like this with a red background, and very often it is upside down, and is upside down because it's good luck. I don't know why. Everything in Chinese culture is good luck. Who knows why? So again, I have attempted to make these from scratch and failed pretty hard. But if I don't know that there's any real benefit from trying to make these from scratch, because you can find it vacuum sealed and fresh pretty easily. And what we're going to do with the Nian Gao is we're going to wash it in a little bit of egg, and then fry it. So this part reminds me a lot of doing like a batter deep fry, so kind of like a tempura batter or a chicken tempura batter. All right. So just like with everything else, I'm going to slice this up. We're going for as evenly sliced as possible because we want to make sure that it cooks as evenly as we can. And then we're going to fry it up. You will notice that this stuff is extremely sticky, so use your sharpest knife, otherwise it will absolutely stick to your knife. Yeah, totally. The only other guy is making ramen pizza. I wonder what ramen pizza is like. It's very interesting. So you'll notice that this stuff is already sticking to my knife. This Nian Gao is extremely sticky, and it is the exact reason why it is vacuum sealed, is because it's made mostly of sugar, so it will absolutely start sticking to literally everything. So there's some plastic wrap here. Don't want to eat that. All right. Hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Wu Can Cook. If this is your first time tuning in to one of these streams, we're here streaming every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 PST, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST, with new recipes out every Friday. So obviously today is not a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but I added this into the schedule the last minute, kind of last minute, because I wanted to stream something for Chinese New Year. So here we are. Every Friday, although, there is a new recipe that comes up over on the YouTube channel. So pretty much everything that I cook on stream, it has a recipe video that goes along with it, including what we're cooking today. There's definitely a recipe for our taro pancake and definitely a recipe for our green onion pancake. Yeah, what is this stuff called? It's called a Nian Gao, which literally translates in Chinese to year cake. So Nian, year, Gao, cake. My Chinese is very bad, so feel free to correct me on my pronunciation. So it is also one of the most common things that you will eat on Chinese New Year, or at least the most traditional thing to eat on Chinese New Year. Although I also frequently will eat this stuff year round because it's really good, so why not? If you're interested, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel. That's where the concurrent live stream lives. So if you're paying attention, there's another laptop that lives behind me. On that laptop, that's where we stream to YouTube. So that laptop contains the stream to YouTube. Over on YouTube, that's also where the whole schedule of everything that I'm going to be cooking within the next couple of weeks live. So if you were watching on YouTube, you would have known a couple of weeks ago that I would be doing this stream. I also did a poll over on YouTube to ask folks what they wanted me to cook over there. And we kind of like polled everyone, and this is what folks were requesting, is some year cake and some green onion pancakes. So if you haven't yet, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel and check out what's going on over there. Lots of fun content that pops up over there, including the recipe for all three of the things that we cooked today. Actually, there's no recipe for this Nian Gao, but there is a recipe for the green onion pancakes and the taro pancakes that we did. We're working our way to 2,300 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you want to help us hit that subscriber goal, feel free to check it out. There's a couple of different series that live over on that channel. We have a whole series that's dedicated to just reproducing foods from Chinese American classics. So we have done a whole bunch of things from Panda Express. It was actually what we did on stream yesterday, which we did a General Tso's chicken on the stream yesterday. We did the honey sesame chicken from Panda Express, Kung Pao chicken. We did a couple things from PF Chang's recently. All of that stuff that is like really iconically associated with Chinese American food. All those like really Americanized Chinese dishes. And then what I like to do is remove those American qualities and see what those dishes would look like if they weren't American, and kind of like insert a lot of traditional Chinese qualities to it. So for the General Tso's chicken we did yesterday, I reassembled it with some spicy black bean paste, which is something that you more commonly would find in jjajangmian. And that creates probably like a type of General Tso's chicken that I honestly have never even had before. I don't think that it, like, you would not, at a certain point it's basically not even General Tso's chicken anymore. It's basically just fried chicken with the jjajangmian sauce, which is really, really tasty. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely hop over to YouTube and check out what's going on over there. That's also where lots of people are already tuning in. So, how's it going, James? How's it going, Will? So lots of folks are tuning in already. So, Happy New Year to everyone who just started tuning in too. It's the year of the ox. We're finally done with the year of the rat. Thank God 2020 is over. We're missing plastic wrap here. All right, so yeah, what are we cutting? This is Nian Gao, which literally translates. So I mentioned this a couple times earlier. Nian Gao, it literally translates to year cake. Nian Gao is something that you don't traditionally find. What we're eating right now is fresh Nian Gao, so I have never seen Nian Gao that is this fresh. This was probably, I bought it at the store yesterday, I think. I bought it at the very last minute. And what you would normally find is Nian Gao that is vacuum packed. So it looks like this. Comes in a vacuum sealed pack, and it is rock hard. It has no freshness to it at all. What essentially they're doing is pulling out all of the moisture because Nian Gao has an extremely short shelf life. It probably will only stay fresh for a couple of days. After that, it will probably start going. And that is why it is normally vacuum packed. So probably the only time that you will ever see Nian Gao fresh like this is when it's Chinese New Year. Because this is what most Chinese people will be making on Chinese New Year. Cool. All right, so what do I want to do? So what I'm doing right now is I'm washing these in our egg wash, and then we're going to head over to our frying pan and cook these up. Actually, I'm going to rinse this oil out because it will taste like something else. That sounds interesting. Hella interesting. Yeah, totally. Someone's from the Bay Area. Yeah, that's actually the reason why I wanted to do a couple of these things today, is because I figured that there are probably lots of folks, unless you're Chinese or you live near or are really familiar with Chinese culture. These are probably a couple of things that lots of folks probably have never had before. Nian Gao, if you've never had it, even most Chinese people don't eat a lot of Nian Gao. We really only eat it on Chinese New Year. Actually, I eat this stuff year-round because it's really good, and I find it randomly in Chinatown all the time. But most often, you really don't see Chinese people eating this stuff unless it's Chinese New Year, because it's the only time that it's really sold. So, do you have to rehydrate them? So today we don't have to rehydrate. No. So to answer your question, no, you don't have to rehydrate them. This particular version that I'm cooking up right now is fresh, so it's not even dehydrated. But when it is dehydrated, you don't need to rehydrate it either. You can totally eat it. You can basically just chop it up as a block, and then wash it in that egg wash, and that's pretty much everything that you need to do. So over on the stove, I'm reheating my frying pan right now. We're just coming back up to temperature with that frying pan, and then we're going to cook these up. Also pulling a little bit of plastic wrap off. Cool. Is there any way to cook Pop-Tarts in a toaster without burning them? I don't think that they should be burning. Keto gyoza. Yeah, actually we did a version of a gyoza, but it is not keto, it's vegetarian. That's over on the YouTube channel too. So I did a couple of different versions of pot stickers, gyoza, and dumplings. So we did all three. We did the whole three in that whole gamut. So that's over on YouTube, and we kind of took a look at what gyoza is and what makes it different from pot stickers or dumplings. And what I discovered is that the only real difference between a pot sticker and a gyoza is, well, the main difference is that one's from Chinese culture. Pot stickers come from Chinese culture. Gyoza comes from Japanese culture. And then the other only real main difference is that gyoza is made with a thinner wrapper. So it's what I like to do when I make gyoza is use wonton wrappers because they're much thinner. Cool. All right, so our frying pan is reheating. I'd like a little bit more heat on here before we start cooking. So we're gonna let that go over on our cast iron skillet. We have this reheating. This is also probably the first stream that I've done in a while where we're not using our wok. Yeah, wok cook Pop-Tarts. Kevin, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. How's it going, everyone? So I see lots of folks have already popped over to YouTube, so if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel yet, if you're watching on Reddit and haven't checked it out, I've heard that it's also easier to watch over there on full screen and on a desktop too. So lots of fun. But in addition to the full screen, though, you can also tune in over there and check out the whole schedule of everything that I'm going to be cooking. So there's an entire schedule built out over there, so you can tune in for just the stuff that you want to watch. You can earmark the things that you want to check out. Lots of folks have started checking out the things that they want to cook with me, and then there's an ingredient list for everything that I'm going to be using, and then you can cook with me, and then we make mistakes together, and we can talk about them. So I know that I definitely make mistakes all the time, including today. I made at least one mistake today. That happens. That's part of cooking. So always more fun to make mistakes with other people, because otherwise, if you make mistakes and you're by yourself, then you just have to like live with the fact that you fucked up. So. That is also where all of the recipe videos, yeah, Kevin just mentioned that too. That's where all of the recipe videos live too. So if you're looking to reproduce what I'm cooking right now, that's where all the recipe videos live. So we're working our way to 2,300 subscribers. If you want to help us hit that goal, bop over and check it out. All right, so into my frying pan, I'm adding some grapeseed oil. I'm not actually using sesame oil today because I'm not using peanut oil for this particular version because I don't want this to bias. Usually I use peanut oil anytime I cook Chinese food, but for this particular instance, because this is a sweet dish, I don't want it to taste like peanut. All right, so I'm washing these in our egg wash, and then we're putting them right into our frying pan. From Lord's Mobile, no, that's not me. I'm not a gamer. Sorry. Yeah, Serge, what are we cooking today? Today we're doing a couple of things. So we just finished doing our taro pancake and green onion pancakes. And right now we're just now finishing up our Nian Gao, which is a Chinese year cake. So it literally translates to year cake. So Nian, year, Gao, cake. And what we're doing right now, so this is fresh Nian Gao, and what we're doing is we're washing it in some egg and then adding it to our frying pan and then just searing long enough until we get a nice seared egg edge to it. Yeah, adopt me and plead me, yeah. All right, so that's what we're looking for, is this nice crisp browned egg edge. If the egg starts peeling off, that means that you're flipping too early, so pay attention and make sure. Also could mean that you don't have enough heat. Did I hit the new stove camera goal? No, I think we're shy by like, I think $40 or something. So we're just shy. I do need to upgrade this GoPro because it's like bugging out. So lots of people ask me. So I've never asked for money to do these streams. So I do them for fun because they're fun to do, and I like chatting with people. But over on YouTube, one of the cameras, it keeps freezing, and then sometimes people don't tell me for like 5 minutes, but they're staring at a frozen frame of my face. So right now we're raising money to fix that camera. All right, so let's flip. Yeah, totally. Turning on yet. Thank you. Yeah, I think I've gotten a couple of those awards. Those are really cool awards. I've seen a couple of awards that come up that I have never seen before. So the Turnion is an award that I just recently discovered. And I noticed that we have 9 hours of airtime right now, which has never happened before. I don't know what to do in 9 hours. But we are definitely not going to stream for 9 hours. Sorry, guys. I will stream for a little while, though. Cool. Yeah, happy Chinese New Year. How's it going, Dan? Happy Chinese New Year. Thanks for tuning in. Hello to everyone over on YouTube, too. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year, everyone. All right, let's start pulling these off. So we're looking for a pretty seared edge here. Some of these might be a little over. That's okay. But we want these to be pretty darkened. This is not scrambled. We're not looking for scrambled eggs here. We're looking for a pretty darkened bit, but also some of these are a little bit black. That's okay. All right, so here's what's going on off the heat. Some of these are a little dark. Maybe I'll flip this one over. Yeah, that one's also a little dark. That's okay. You will find a lot of different versions of Nian Gao. I know that there is definitely one very, very popular version that has red bean in it, which I very much dislike. I don't like the one that has red bean in it. So, 24-hour cooking stream, meal prep for the month. Yeah, that would be crazy. Also, 3 turkey dinners. Or I guess I could like live stream the proofing of the loaf of bread that I made this morning. That would be crazy. I don't know what I would. I don't really know what to do with that much airtime. All right, so back over to the stove. We're adding the remainder here. That's maybe a little bit too much heat. We're looking for medium heat here. We're definitely not wok heat right now, so we don't want this to be too hot. All right, so that ought to do it. Cool. All right, well, that's finishing up. Thank you, everyone, for checking out what's going on today. Happy New Year to everyone, too. This is really cool. Usually on Chinese New Year, I'll be home for Chinese New Year and hanging out with my family. Today we're not home or doing Chinese New Year this year because of COVID. So this is cool to actually be doing something as opposed to doing nothing. Bananas, ooh, that's a new one. Lots of new awards today. All right, one last thing that we want to pay attention to is that when you make Nian Gao, you'll notice that everything else that I fried up, it is pretty much stacked on top of each other. Very important with Nian Gao, though, is that because it is so sticky, you want to try and do your best to make sure that this stuff doesn't touch each other. Otherwise, it will totally stick to each other. And then you'll end up with one giant glob of Nian Gao, which is never fun. And that ought to do it. Alright, so we'll line them up. I think we can go ahead and remove our paper towel. We don't need a paper towel with Nian Gao because it is not nearly as oily as everything else. There we go. Alright, so I'm serving up the taro pancake and the scallion pancake with a little bit of soy sauce, followed by a pinch of sesame oil, and maybe a quarter teaspoon of sambal olek. This is probably the most basic soy sauce combo that you can assemble. These are also the three things that you very frequently will find on the Lazy Susans in restaurants. And that is it. Oh yeah, who taught me to cook? I taught myself. I didn't. No one really taught me how to cook. I pretty much just taught myself. I watched stuff on the internet a lot. I definitely did not go to school for cooking. Cool. So that's it. 2 savory things, 1 dessert thing. We're gonna have to try and eat these in order. So none of these things are for dinner though, so we have to figure out what to eat for dinner. Cool. Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, this is an odd stream because it's Chinese New Year. We're usually here every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. PST, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. PST. Usually, most often what we cook on stream are things that I have written recipes for. So today's, we did a couple of things that are recipe versions. So this green onion pancake, I believe, was maybe the second thing that I ever wrote a recipe for. That's over on the YouTube channel. And this taro pancake is something that we did from scratch. I did a recipe for from scratch a couple of months ago. Today we used 2 different things that were store-bought. So this taro pancake and this Nian Gao are both store-bought. But I have definitely made this taro pancake from scratch, and it is super, super tasty. It is easily one of my favorite things in the dim sum menu. I also love doing it from store-bought blocks though, because it's just a really, really easy thing to cook up when you are just looking for a snack or something. Also really tasty to serve up for breakfast or brunch. So. If you're looking for the recipe for anything that we cooked today, all of that lives over on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/woocancook. So if you're watching on Reddit, that's the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, that's the channel you're already on, so you already made it over there. I know there's lots of folks that are already tuned in over on YouTube, so that's really, really cool. Over there, that's where all of the recipe videos live for everything that I cook. So if you're looking for any of those recipe videos, that's where they all live. We have a couple of series that are going on right now. I have an entire series that's dedicated to just reproducing foods from TV and film. So we did a couple things from The Legend of Korra. There's another series that's dedicated to just foods from Bay Area restaurants. We've been picking a couple of restaurants from the Bay Area restaurant scene, usually in San Francisco and Oakland, and then taking a shot at some of the things from their menu. My favorite is the series on Chinese American food, which has been really, really interesting because it kind of like picks a couple of those really quintessential and iconic Chinese American dishes like General Tso's chicken, Kung Pao chicken, stuff like that. A lot of things from Panda Express, P.F. Chang's, things like that. And takes a look at like what are the American qualities of those dishes and what would they look like if they weren't so American. So that's really fun to do. And then kind of like reassemble those dishes without all of those American qualities and see like if it were a traditional Chinese food, if General Tso's chicken were a truly traditional Chinese dish, what would it look like? And that's really interesting to do because it's fun to experiment with a lot of those really traditional Chinese ingredients. I think for the General Tso's chicken, I used black bean paste, black bean sauce, which is really interesting because you definitely normally wouldn't see that in a stir fry. It's usually used in noodles for a dish like jjajangmyeon. So lots of stuff like that. If you're looking for fun content like that, there's a whole bunch of fun recipes that live over there. Usually in those recipe videos, they move a little bit slower and we can kind of like talk my way through some of the things that I do in recipe videos, why I do certain things, why I leave some stuff out, things like that. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely hop over to YouTube and check it out. We're working our way to 2,300 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you want to help us hit it, definitely hop over. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad to have a chance to cook some stuff for Chinese New Year, so it's always super fun to chat with folks. Definitely hop over to YouTube, check out what's going on over there, and yeah, we'll see you soon. I'll be back next Tuesday doing hot and sour soup. So that's the recipe that we released last Friday. So, oh yeah, that's the last thing I'll say, is that every Friday there's a new recipe that pops up over on YouTube. So today we released the hot and sour soup recipe. That came out just today over on YouTube. And we'll be cooking through that recipe step by step, live streaming that on Tuesday. So if you want to check that out, hop it over, check it out. All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, take it over.